Hey guys, Dr. Kelsey here. Today we are going to talk about supplements. The reason we're going to talk about that is because this is a conversation that comes up so often. It's something that I talk about with my patients. It's something I teach to my students. It's something I talk about anytime I'm doing public speaking. And it's something that I hear come up in conversations that I am overhearing or listening in on. And it's because it's, there's a valid question at the root of it. And the question is, if I'm a patient or if I'm a consumer, why would I spend X amount of dollars purchasing a supplement from my healthcare provider when I can get something that looks similar, that's labeled similarly, and is a little bit cheaper, maybe even a lot cheaper at a local drugstore or a grocery store or a health food store that's right next door that I can drive to? It's a valid question, right? I'm sure a lot of people have thought this. I used to think this. My family thinks this, even though I'm the naturopathic doctor in the family. And this is such an important conversation, and really at the root of it is understanding just a little bit about supplement regulation and history. And I know history isn't everybody's bag, but hang with me here for just a second. I'm going to just breeze over it very superficially, just so that you have, a little understanding of where this comes from, so we can understand why this question matters and why the answer matters even more. The first thing I want to explain is that in 1990, the Nutrition Labeling Education Act was passed. And what that act did is it basically gave the authority to the FDA to determine if a manufacturer's product of supplements was, well, not just supplements, but a manufacturer's product was efficacious and was safe. Now, that's pretty much it. And if you understand the vagueness of that, then you understand that that also means that it did not require the FDA to prove the efficacy and safety. It just gave them the authority to. So it was really up to the FDA to determine if they were going to go knock on the door of some manufacturer's company and ask to see their production line and prove if they had efficacy and safety. So that's number one. Now, 4 years later, in 1994, the DSHEA Act was passed. And the DSHEA Act is the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act. And this act was more specifically about supplements. And it basically said that supplements could not be regulated by the FDA as drugs because most of them come from natural products, and natural products typically can't be patented. However, it did say that the FDA could regulate supplements as drugs if they made medical claims. Now, medical claims would be to say that this product treats insomnia, or it cures GI disturbance, or it prevents cancer, something like that. And so that's probably why, for those of you who take supplements or who have ever taken a supplement, if you've paid attention to the label on the bottle, you'll notice that usually somewhere, usually on the back in small print on the bottom, there will be a statement that says these statements have not been approved by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, prevent, cure any disease, right? So most of you have seen that. And so supplement companies have to be very careful in their wording about what their products do, and they are required to have that label on there. And if they don't, then they are certainly at risk of getting in trouble with the FDA. Now, that's important to understand the history, right? So that's really the only regulation that there is on the supplement industry. Outside of that, there's really not a lot going on. Now, the FDA is also responsible for monitoring so many other things. And so it's not always on the top of their to-do list to monitor every single supplement coming out of every single new supplement company. And as you and I both know, there are new supplement companies popping up every day, right? All over the place. Everybody's just starting their own supplement companies, and you can find supplements for anything all over the place. And so something to understand about this is because of the way the acts were written in 1990 and 1994, again, while it gives the FDA authority to investigate a company, it does not require it. So many of the companies that are coming out and that are producing products may not be producing them in a way that's very ethical or very safe. They most likely aren't doing third-party testing because it's not required, and third-party quality assurance testing is very expensive. It's very expensive, and that comes out of the pocket of the company, right? Especially if they're doing, testing and they're doing it at multiple points along the way, like on the raw crude material, on the batch once they formulate, and then the final product. The other problem that comes up here is, let's say somebody is doing quality assurance testing and they end up flagging a particular batch for either having high heavy metals, for not having the right amounts of each product in there. Well, now that product has to get trashed, and that comes out of the manufacturer's pocket. So people who are trying to make money off of supplements or trying to produce supplements that are low cost and, just obtainable by the majority of the population, most likely aren't doing these extra quality assurance steps because they're so expensive, and they wouldn't be able to produce a cheap supplement if they were doing that. Now, that's not to say that all of the supplement companies out there are, a bunch of shysters who are just trying to get your money. There certainly are some of those. But I think, even if people have good intentions in mind, this can still be very problematic because we know that a lot of cheaply produced vitamins and minerals, for example, use synthetic versions of those vitamins that your body really doesn't know what to do with. So it might say it has that vitamin on the label, but once it gets in your body's like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do with it. And so it ends up expending resources on trying to figure out what to do with this synthetic product that it can't do anything with, instead of working on digesting things that actually can be to the benefit of the cells in the body. So that's one problem. Another problem is, especially if we're talking about herbal supplements, a lot of, these are plants, they grow in the ground, and a lot of herbal supplements or a lot of herbal products, so let's say before they're even a supplement, when they're growing in the ground, one could be sprayed with herbicides or pesticides to keep the bugs off of them, because then you don't lose your crop. So again, it's cheaper to do that. But we also know that herbicides and pesticides cause a lot of problems in the body, right? They can cause things like leaky gut, they can cause food sensitivities, they can cause massive dysbioses or imbalances in the gut bacteria, which can then actually affect the brain and cause issues like mood disturbances, like anxiety and depression, could be related to Parkinsonian diseases. And so, those are a very real concern. We also know that a lot of plants part of what they do, what makes them so cool, is they leach nutrients out of the soil, right? That's how they get their nitrogen. That's how they get the nutrients they need out of the soil. But along with those nutrients, they can also leach out heavy metals like arsenic or cadmium or mercury, right? And these are not medicine. These are not things you want in your body. And oftentimes they can actually cause disease or make disease processes worse. We also know that a number of products are treated with some kind of carcinogenic material, right? So they may have cancer-causing agents in them. We also know that depending on how the plants are watered, some water contains heavy metals, a lot of water contains hormones. That's, from the birth control that everybody's taking that gets passed out into the groundwater. And so the plants that are getting used, if they're not being third-party tested to make sure they're free of all these things, could very well contain things that may actually be detrimental to your health and be contributing to your health problems rather than making you better, which is why most people choose to use supplements in the first place, right? So this is a big problem. There was a research study, there's actually been a few, but there was a really important research study that came out sometime within the last 10 years where the researchers grabbed different products off the shelves of common stores like GNC, Target, Costco, and basically broke down the product inside to make sure that to basically investigate if it lined up with what was listed on the label. And almost across the board, those supplements failed that inspection. Most of them did not have any or had very little of the active ingredients that were listed on the label. Many of them had fillers like grass clippings and sawdust in them just to make them more packed into the capsules. Because again, if you think about it, any kind of herb or nutrient, once it's powdered down and put into a capsule or a tablet, they all kind of just look brown or green, right? You can't tell where that came from initially. And then what they also found is a lot of those products did test positive for chemicals and heavy metals, things like pesticides, herbicides. And what we also know about a lot of those chemicals is that they can be endocrine disruptors, so they can screw up your hormones and cause some hormone dysregulation. So we know that this is a very common problem. We also know that people are taking supplements or taking, the bottles of reputable brands and filling them with fraudulent product and selling them. There have been articles about Amazon admitting to authorizing the sale of fraudulent products. So this is a very large problem that is just permeating our culture. The companies that are doing third-party testing. Now remember, this is completely voluntary because it is not required, it's not mandated by any kind of law or law enforcement agency. And so it is completely up to a company if they're going to put the resources into doing third-party testing. Third-party testing, like I said, is very expensive. And if you're doing it the right way, you're doing it multiple times on every single batch. And you are running the risk of losing out not only on the product, but also on the money if a batch tests positive for any of these harmful substances. One of the other things that can be in there that most of these high quality, high integrity companies are looking for is, they're wanting to make sure that their products are free of common allergens that could be an issue for some people, like gluten and dairy and corn and soy and shellfish. They want to make sure that they're free of dyes, because some people can be sensitive to dyes, artificial colorings. They want to make sure that they are free of unnecessary fillers like grass clippings and sawdust. Unfortunately, that means that it falls on you as the consumer to, one, care about this, two, decide to put in the energy and research into where you're getting your products from, which can be a hassle sometimes. And three, be willing to maybe spend a little bit more because the companies that are doing that third-party testing, that cost is going to get passed on to the consumer because otherwise the company wouldn't stay in business. So, this has been a question that I hear all the time. I hear this from my own family. Why would I spend the money on this product that I can get from my healthcare provider when I can get something that looks similar, is labeled similarly, for so much cheaper? And in my opinion, it's because it is very likely that if you are buying that cheaper supplement, even though it's cheaper, at very least, you're not getting anything out of it, and that $10 or $12 that you're spending on it is just going down the toilet when you use the bathroom, rather than actually supporting your body. And at the very worst, it could actually be doing harm and adding to your health concerns and causing more inflammation and causing more, backup and stagnation and work on the liver and causing detox problems. So, there's a very real problem here. And often what I see with my patients is, if they're doing something just kind of off the store shelf and they're like, well, I tried this supplement and it didn't help, right? And then it's like, okay, well, let's try a similar supplement, but by a company that I know is doing third-party quality testing, and they do it, and then suddenly they feel better, right? They're seeing the effects of it because we can guarantee what's actually in that product. So it does make a big difference. It is worth your money if you are somebody who's going to be using supplements, to be spending a little bit more money on supplements that are actually doing what you are paying for them to do, so you can continue leveling up in your own health goals and in your life. And, you know, from my patient base, because I work with really high performing individuals like athletes and celebrities and entrepreneurs and business owners, they, you know, maybe like they can't afford to be off their game, right? They are paying me and working with me to do the things they need to do to optimize their health so they can continue making gains and so that they can continue thriving and optimizing in their life. And that is just not as likely to happen if you are purchasing very cheap, low quality supplements that have zero guarantee as to what's actually in there. So I hope that answers your question. I figured, you know, I might as well make a video about this since it comes up so often. Please feel free to share this with any of your family, with any of your friends, because more and more people worldwide are taking supplements and using them as, you know, part of their health regimen. But we want to make sure that they're actually supporting their health and not causing detriment or damage or, you know, prolonging any of their conditions or concerns. If you have other questions, please feel free to post those below. I'm happy to answer them for you. But if you take, what I would like to know is if you're somebody who does take a high quality supplement, or if you've ever noticed the difference between taking a store-bought supplement and then a physician line supplement, I would like to know that. So post that below. I do read all my comments and I usually get back to them. I think that's it for today. So again, if you have questions, put them below. I'll talk to you later.